Hello, welcome. I am going to be talking about the prophetic significance of the book of Job. Job has his theological contributions. Job also shows us something about history. It's from the book of Job. We know that the book must be a very old book because Abraham is not mentioned there, Israel is not mentioned there, Isaac, Jacob, you know. So the book perhaps must be somewhere before the time of Abraham. So, but I'm going to be talking about the prophetic significance of this book. The book of Job and every other book of the Bible, has to be also understood from a prophetic angle. The book of Job is guiding light for people who are going through the 18th season, people who are in the 18th year, people who are in the season of an 18th leader, people who are experiencing an 18th week or 18th day or 18th 7 years, maybe for nations or organizations. The book of Job guides people in the 18th season. Now, why is that? Job is the 18th book of the Bible. Every season of man has guiding light in the book of the Bible and in the chapters of the Bible that correspond to that season. So the book of Job is placed 18th in the Bible. Can you imagine? Why would you place Job 18th? Well, maybe because that's where the poetic books are more than that. It's more than that. The book of Job, the 18th book of God, is supposed to guide people in this season. And every book of the Bible is where it is because of the season it speaks to, not because of chronology, not because of doctrine, not because of history. Every book of the Bible is where it is because of the season it speaks to. Now, so what does Job have to say to people in the 18th season? And I want you to listen carefully because you're going to see that what I say concerning the 18th book of the Bible, agrees with what you have in the 18 chapters of the Bible. And you can't just make this up. I mean, there has to be a divine, it must be that there's a divine arrangement, there's a divine hand that put these things together. So what does Job have to say to people who are going through the 18th season? Now, the book of Job shows us, number one, that in the 18th season, preservation is priority. It's something to pay attention to. It's something to, give attention to. It's something to watch. Preservation is an issue. That's what came on Job. Job, had this threat of preservation. There was a threat against his business, on his business, his business was threatened, and not just threatened, but destroyed. His children were also, killed. His family was threatened, and his own health. So preservation, if God had not, put a boundary somewhere, said to Satan, you must not touch his life, the enemy was headed for Job's life. Was headed for Job's life. So the book of Job shows us that when you come into the 18th season, whether it's 18th day of any or a month or 18th day of the year or 18th week of the year or 18th year of anniversary or birthday or whatever, or for nations that come into nations that could be in the 18th 7 years. That means when a nation has celebrated 119 years and is stepping into the 120th year to the 126th year, that is the 18th 7 years. So the book of Job shows that when you come into a season like this, you need to watch preservation carefully. So in the book of Job, the book opens with an attack. Job lost his business to raiders, to what would look like banditry. He lost his business. They attacked his livestock, killed his servants, took away the livestock. His children were partying in their elder brother's house, and then fire came and, destroyed that. So, I mean, that's part of going specifically. It's even important that you watch against fire disasters in this season. So whatever destroys lives, you see. And then Job was also, his health was attacked. Relationships were attacked. We're going to talk about that. So that's what we find in the book of Job. So Job shows that preservation is important. And you can see how it agrees with what you find in the 18th chapters of the Bible. 18th chapter of 1 Samuel, we hear that, we read that, just King Saul made attempts to kill David, but God saved him. In Genesis chapter 18, God, spoke to Abraham about going to destroy Sodom. Abraham prayed. In Revelation 18, we read about the destruction of great Babylon. So preservation is important. Now, the second thing that the book of Job tells us that when you come into this season, it is not a good season to just go into blindly. You need to covet the spirit of revelation. You need to trust God so you must take revelation seriously. Don't just reason things. The problem in the book of Job that people were just arguing and reasoning. Reasoning is not how you head into the 18th season. You must pay attention to revelation, because often what the problem that Job faced did not start in the natural realm. It was something that began in the spirit realm. So you must take revelations seriously. And somehow what happened to Job had to be revealed to somebody, that this was what happened to Job. It was not an ordinary thing. It was something that started in the spirit realm. When you read 2 Chronicles chapter 18, you see how that there was a discussion in the spirit about how Ahab will go to war and die. Ahab did not know about that revelation. And when Prophet Micaiah told him, he did not believe it. You do not trivialize revelation in the 18th season. That's the lesson that we know from the book of Job. Job did not know that anything was being planned against him. In the book of John chapter 18, Jesus said to Peter, Satan had requested to sift you, but I have prayed for you. I have prayed for you. Meaning that, Peter didn't know that there was anything to, sift him like wheat. But Jesus already got the revelation. So in the 18th season, you need to pay attention to revelation. The book of Job also shows us that you need relationships. When life happens to people in the 18th season, as it does happen, it's a good time to have relationship around. Not only was Job's health and business and children attacked, Job's relationship were attacked. His friends came together. They did not understand what was happening to him, and so they began to attack him, criticize him, blame him, condemn him, say all manner of things. So, they just ended up arguing and blaming this and again, arguments and counter-arguments. So those are things, that we need to be careful about in the season. So Job lets us know that it's a time to ask why, and try to find out why this is happening, why the other one is happening. So, and of course, so Job shows us that the 18th season can be a time of trial, a time of temptation. So it's a time to take care of relationships, stand with those who are going through pains. We see the same thing, relationship. The people of Laish were, suffered great defeat because they had no neighbors. They had nobody close to them in Judges chapter 18. Relationships saved Job, Moses' ministry and life in Exodus 18. Aquila and Priscilla guided Apollos in Acts of Apostles chapter 18. Jonathan became David's friend in 1 Samuel chapter 18. So relationships are very, very important. That's why the book of Proverbs said, a man who isolates himself, seeks his own desire, he rages against sound judgment. It means that to isolate yourself in the 18th season is you're acting against sound judgment. relationship is important. Abraham pursued relationship in Genesis chapter 18, and then he encountered the angels or the servants of God that, spoke into the life of Sarah that by this time tomorrow, by this time next year, a baby will be in this house. So the 18th season is a time. Relationships saved Peter. Said, Satan has to save you, but I have prayed for you. So relationships are very important. We need to pursue them. We need to be intentional about seeking relationships in the 18th season. It shows us the value of prayer also. Abraham prayed in Genesis 18, and not just prayer, persistent prayer that never gives up. It's a time to be relentless in prayer in the 18th season. So these are things we learn from the book of Job. We're told that after Job prayed for his friends, God healed him. So prayer is important. Luke chapter 18 says, men ought always to pray and not to faint. Jesus said to Peter, I have prayed for you. So prayer is very, very important in this. So these are some of the things that the book of Job opens our eyes to see. So when you're going through the 18th season, it's important that you read the book of Job. Not because, you love the story or that everything is going to just go that way. You're going to lose business, lose family, and lose health. No, it doesn't have to be that way. But it just shows you that this is a time of trial. And the trial doesn't have to be because you did something wrong. In this time of temptation, time of trial. So as you read the book of Job, it helps you to not just focus on one side and just relax and sleep off, and then the enemy takes people by surprise. So it's a time, to learn from the book of Job. And I pray that whether you or someone goes through the 18th season, the book of Job is there to help. And the 18 chapters of the Bible are also companions. They're companions, of the book of Job. They are there. You see, whatever you find in the book of Job, you're going to find that the 18 chapters also support or bear witness or correspond to that. So in the 18th season, which is 18th day, 18th week, 18th year, 18th 7 years, you need the 18th book of the Bible and the 18 chapters of the Bible to help you to understand the season and to know how you ought to live your life. I pray God will bless you with this light. Amen.